A small rural town was utterly shocked when their favorite high school teacher, Mr. Brown, was found dead in his home one morning. His death was no accident. Someone had taken his life. But what the police soon discovered about Mr. Brown would make this case the strangest they'd ever seen. This is the story of Mr. Brown, a man who led a double life. Mr. Brown was an institution at Willow Creek High. He'd been teaching history there for over 30 years. And to the students of the town, he was more than just a teacher. He was a role model. Warm, funny, and kind, he cared about each and every one of them, and they knew it. If they ever had a problem, they could go to Mr. Brown, and he would always lend an ear. That's why the news of his death hit the town so hard. It was Mrs. Peters, Mr. Brown's next-door neighbor, who found him that morning. She was an elderly woman who relied on Mr. Brown to do her groceries. When she hadn't seen him around, she went to check up on him, only to find his front door wide open. She called out for Mr. Brown, but there was no reply. As she stepped inside, she saw a sight that would forever be burned into her memory. There in the living room was Mr. Brown lying lifeless on the floor, blood all around him. The police were called and soon arrived at the scene. They immediately set up a crime scene and began their investigation. It didn't take long for them to determine that Mr. Brown had been the victim of foul play. There were signs of a struggle, and his injuries suggested that he'd been hit over the head with a blunt object, most likely a baseball bat. But this wasn't just a random home invasion gone wrong. Mr. Brown had been targeted, but why? And who could have done such a thing? As the police began going through Mr. Brown's belongings, they found something that gave them a big lead: a diary. It contained intimate details about Mr. Brown's life, but the entries from the previous week were the most interesting. In them, Mr. Brown spoke about someone who'd been blackmailing him, threatening to expose him unless he paid up. Whoever this person was, they knew things about Mr. Brown that he didn't want anyone to know. But what could they possibly be? The police continued their investigation and were able to track down the person blackmailing Mr. Brown. His name was Jason Ford, and he was known around town as a shady character who always seemed to be involved in illegal activities. But the police weren't able to arrest him. He'd already taken his own life. That's what made this case so difficult. Not only had Mr. Brown been murdered, but the person who killed him had also taken their own life. What kind of secret could be so damaging that it would drive a person to murder and then suicide? As the town mourned the loss of Mr. Brown, his family and friends struggled to come to terms with his death. None of them could think of a single enemy he might have had. He was well liked by everyone. But as they looked back, they did notice something strange. Mr. Brown had recently become distant and secretive. He'd started spending long periods of time away from home and had even changed his phone number. Why? Was he hiding something? Determined to get to the bottom of this, Mr. Brown's family hired a private investigator, much to the dismay of the police, who felt like they were being mocked. But the truth was they didn't have many leads, and any new information would be helpful. The private investigator, a sharp woman named Maggie Ryan, began going through Mr. Brown's past, looking for clues. And soon she found something very interesting. Mr. Brown had once been married, but his wife had died under mysterious circumstances. At the time, it had been ruled an accident, but now Maggie wasn't so sure. Could there be foul play in Mr. Brown's past? Meanwhile, the police were able to track down Jason Ford's associates, hoping to find some answers there. But they were surprised to learn that Ford hadn't been involved in any criminal activities for quite some time. In fact, he'd been leading a very normal life, working as a mechanic and raising a family. So, why had he turned to blackmail? And what did he know about Mr. Brown? As the investigation continued, Maggie Ryan uncovered more about Mr. Brown's past. She learned that he'd been a talented student, but had a troubled home life. His parents were strict and distant, and he often felt alone. That's why he'd been so dedicated to his job as a teacher, wanting to be a role model to those who didn't have one. But there was another side to Mr. Brown, a side he kept hidden for decades. Maggie discovered that Mr. Brown had once been arrested for selling drugs. He'd been young at the time, and had made a terrible mistake that he deeply regretted. He'd never dealt drugs again and had even cooperated with the police, helping them to take down a major drug ring. But the arrest had still tarnished his reputation, and he'd been forced to move to Willow Creek in order to get a job as a teacher there. Now, with this new information in hand, the police decided to reopen the case. They went back to Mr. Brown's house and began searching for anything they might have missed. And what they found would shock them to their core. Hidden in the lining of Mr. Brown's closet was a gun. It was the same gun that had been used to kill him. But that wasn't all. The police also found a letter. It was written by Mr. Brown and explained everything. He wrote about his past as a drug dealer and how he'd been blackmailed by Jason Ford. But he also revealed another secret, a secret that would change everything. Mr. Brown revealed that he wasn't actually Mr. Brown. He'd assumed that identity after leaving his old life behind. His real name was Brian Davis, and the reason he'd been so secretive lately was because he'd been afraid that someone had discovered his true identity. He'd been living in fear of exposure for years and had even changed his appearance to avoid being recognized. With this new information, the police were able to close the case. They now understood why Mr. Brown had been killed and who was responsible. It had been a tragic accident. Mr. Brown had been trying to buy some time in order to come clean about his past, but Ford had found out and had killed him in a fit of rage. The news of Mr. Brown's double life spread throughout the town, and everyone was shocked. They couldn't believe that the man they'd known for so long had been living a life of secrecy. But despite his past, they still mourned his loss. He'd been a great man who made a difference in the lives of countless students. In the end, justice had been served. The truth was out, and Mr. Brown could finally rest in peace. But for the people of Willow Creek, the shock waves of his death would be felt for a long time. They'd lost more than just a teacher. They'd lost a friend. Did you know a person who turned out to be a criminal as an adult was once a model citizen? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more content. Thanks for watching.